Joining me right now is Pennsylvania Congressman, House Appropriations Committee member, and China Task Force member, Guy Reschenthaler. You will be the Majority Whip-elect. Tom Emmer's Chief Deputy Whip next Congress. Congratulations, Congressman.
Thank you, Maria.
What does that mean? And give us your sense of Beijing now initiating the highest emergency levels of censorship, cracking down on VPNs, urging companies to monitor protests on social media. Was it the Beijing Communist Party who told Tim Cook to change the airdrop feature, do you think?
It's very possible, Maria. We know that the Chinese Communist Party will coordinate with our woke CEOs here in the United States. In fact, it's a lot of what the China Task Force looked at, just the pressure that the CCP brings on American business to capitulate and kowtow to the ruling regime in China. But the fact that you saw Cook dodging all those questions, it's amazing because the left says that our silence is violence. Here you have this woke CEO who refused to allow airdrop, refused to help the actual freedom fighters on the ground in Beijing. Someone that has done everything to make it easy for that ruling regime to do everything from organ harvesting to the suppression of the Uyghur minority in Western China. It's absolutely unacceptable. And it shows you that in these woke corporations, it's from the very bottom, the person that you walk in the Apple store that has the "We Stand with Ukraine" flag pin, to the CEO. They might be into virtue signaling, but their virtue is hollow. These are not virtuous people. And as far as the Chief Deputy Whip position, Maria, I'm honored that Tom Emmer named me Chief Deputy Whip. And what that means is that the Whip team is run by deputies. They're the guys that actually have the cards on the floor if you're watching C-SPAN. The Chief Deputy Whip is the top lieutenant to the Whip. So I'll be helping Tom Emmer run the Deputy Whip team. And with a 222-seat majority, every vote's going to count. Everything's going to be razor thin. So I'm up for the challenge. And again, I'm honored to be named by Tom Emmer.
Well, look, what could you do about these woke companies? Let's not forget, it's all about money when it comes to China. Apple generated $74 billion in China last year, and that's why we're wondering if the CCP said, look, you either go along our line or you're out. And maybe they're intimidated by that, hearing from the CCP officials, and that's why they limited the airdrop feature. I don't know. He won't answer the question. Well, what are you going to do about these woke corporations that are actually funding the expansion of communist China? And this is the #1 adversary of the United States.
Right. The CCP is our #1 adversary. And unlike any other time in our history, arguably with the exception of the Revolutionary War in 1812, we're facing an adversary that has a GDP roughly the same size as the United States. So this is going to be a struggle that's far more difficult than the Cold War. And we are just getting started. Remember, China has really declared an economic war on us, a Cold War on us. Finally, we're waking up to that fact and viewing China as an adversary. But as far as the woke corporations, China continues to use that large market share to bludgeon our corporate executives into compliance. And because our corporate executives are so feckless and spineless, they just bend over and kowtow to the Chinese Communist Party. What we can do in government is expose the pressure that the CCP is bringing on these corporations. We can also have trade regulations to make it much more difficult to do business with China. We can divest from China. For example, the military's TSP, our savings account, should not be invested in companies that are owned by China and by extension the PLA. So we can start by doing that and then making sure these supply chains are diverted from mainland China to other places around the world.
Yeah, I mean, that's all well and good, but, the direction comes from the top, and we haven't stopped investing in the thrift fund. You have government employees, even those in the military, investing in this is their 401k, and that 401k gives them an opportunity to invest in Chinese companies that are tied to the CCP. And suddenly, Dr. Anthony Fauci is getting religion on the origins of COVID-19. He claims it's very important to track down the origins of COVID-19. What have we done about it? Yesterday, he said that. Here's what he said about COVID-19 originating in that Wuhan lab. Watch.
There's this debate of whether it's a lab leak from something that was going on in a Chinese lab or a natural occurrence. It could have been something like studying a virus that they got out of the environment and perhaps having it leaked out into the community. I don't think that's what happened, but my mind is completely open.
What is he talking about, Congressman? We have all of the circumstantial evidence. What are you going to do in terms of getting to the bottom of COVID-19 and why China covered it up?
Well, this is going to be all about oversight and investigation. And one thing we're going to do is we're going to bring in Fauci into the House so many times that he's going to have a designated parking spot on the House Plaza. I can tell you that. He's going to get sick of taking questions from Republicans. But it's quite amazing the timing on this, Maria. Now that Fauci sees that he's going to be hauled in front of committee after committee hearing in the House, he's changing his tune on the COVID origin. But I can tell you that from the very beginning days of this virus, somebody like myself, a lawyer, somebody that's not a scientist, you could look at that evidence and clearly see that the virus originated in the BSL-4 lab in Wuhan. Because the fact that they're trying to say that this came from a wet market and it was naturally occurring, that's the conspiracy theory. To believe that, you would have to believe that that bat traveled literally 1,000 miles to Wuhan from where it was found in nature, while infecting zero people or other animals along the way, and that the disease leaked it went to miraculously was found in the wet market right near the BSL-4 lab, where the PLA had the head of their biological weapons program there running that lab, and the lab was focused on zoonotic-borne diseases, specifically respiratory diseases. The circumstantial evidence is there. As a former lawyer, prosecutor, I could prosecute that case every day and win that case. It's amazing that Fauci is now all of a sudden changing his tune.
Well, and we knew that in March of 2020, by the way, right? I mean, all the circumstantial evidence where the cell phone data was dead around the Wuhan lab. They shut everything down. Scientists were dying left and right. I mean, come on. Meanwhile, I don't know how you're going to deal with the potential for just lies, hiding their complicity. Future House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan sent a letter to the former CIA Director John Brennan and the former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper. These two lied about the Hunter Biden investigation after lying about the Russia collusion story. Jordan renewed Republican demands to provide information about a statement signed in October of 2020, claiming that the New York Post Hunter Biden report was Russian disinformation, something that we broke wide open on this program the very next day when I spoke with John Ratcliffe, who was then the sitting director of national intelligence, who said the Hunter Biden laptop is not Russian disinformation. We know that for sure, and they know it because we are the only ones in the director of national intelligence office who would have said that, who would have told those people that, and we didn't, and they all signed their name to that letter. I mean, why? They lied right before a presidential election just to get Trump out.
Well, they did. They lied because to them, it's not about honor. It's not about integrity. For the left, it's all about the political agenda. It's all about pushing forward their far left radical policies. And if that means being a member of the so-called intelligence community and lying about disinformation or the origins of this laptop, they'll do it. So I cannot wait to get more oversight investigation to see where this collusion story came from, where the Russian disinformation came from, and discredit those individuals.
All right, we will leave it there, and we'll be watching your work. Thanks very much, Congressman Guy
Reschenthaler,
joining us this morning in New York today. We'll be right back. Stay with us.